And this is what I want to do. I want to read with you the first chapter of the book of Job. And I want to tell you something. This is the book of Job, Job in Hebrew, is one of the most enigmatic books in the Bible. Why do I say that? Number one, we don't know when it took place. Every book in the Bible has a historical context. We know when Yetziat Mitzrayim was, when we left Egypt. We know when Ma'amad Har-Sinai was, when we stood in front of Hashem and we received the Torah in Sinai. We know all the stories of the Bible, and we know them with precision. We know exactly the year that everything took place. In fact, the history of the Bible is so clearly defined that we can probably use the historicity of the Bible as a frame of reference for other historical episodes. That's how well defined the history of the Bible is. Everything year, month, day. So that's great. The book of Job. When did it take place? Does anybody know? Well, no, because the Gemara actually in Masechet Bava Batra, Daf Tet Zayin, the Gemara goes over a whole bunch of opinions. Some rabbis say it took place in the days of Pharaoh of Egypt, when Moses was going to the Pharaoh saying, "Let my people go." Other rabbis say, no, it took place in the days of the Meraglim, when the spies entered Israel. Other rabbis say, no, it took place in the days of Shofetim, with Ruth HaMoaviyah, that whole story that we read on Shavuot, right? Hundreds of years later. Other people say it took place in the days of Ahasuerus. Many different opinions. When did it take place? In fact, there's an opinion, and Harambam brings this opinion in the Monet Nevuchim, that the story is not historical. We don't say this about other books in the Bible, right? We believe in the historicity of the Bible. We believe in the stories, right? Job, the Gemara says, one of the Shittot in the Gemara, Harambam brings this Shittot in the Monet Nevuchim, Lo haya velo nivra. Never happened. So why do we have the story? The story is there to awaken our minds, to expand our consciousness, to get us to think about things that normally we wouldn't think about. So the book is very enigmatic. When did it take place? Didn't it take place? Another reason I'm saying that it's enigmatic. The language of Job is the most unique Hebrew in the Bible. If you look at the Bible, you read it, and if you know Hebrew, you can kind of understand it, and you muddle along. It's ancient Hebrew, but you can still figure it out. Job, the Hebrew of Job is very difficult, and it's very unusual. The style is poetic beyond belief. The prose is stunning. It's inspiring just to read it, right? It reminds me, and my father actually made this connection, because Job takes place in northeastern Syria, a place called Aram, Uz. We'll get to that in a moment. It reminds me of the Hebrew of Bilam, who also came from there. Min Aram Emcheni, Balak Melech Moab Meharere Kedem. He came from that same place. And the Hebrew is similar. Now, if you remember the blessings that the Am gives the Jewish people, beautiful, poetic language. So we get that type of Hebrew here. So it's very unusual. And I want to tell you what we do know. You all have the, or many of you have, I made whatever copies I had. So many of you have the thing. Here's what we do know. Where does it take place? So look at the first pasuk, Ish Haya Ve'eres Us, where it took place. The story takes place in a location called Us. Us, as I said, is somewhere near Halab. There's all rivers over there. In the ancient Near East, it was considered one of the most fertile places in the world. It was the center of civilization. Today it's, whatever, the ISIS caliphate, whatever. A different world. Okay, but back then, that was the place. That was like America. It was the center of everything. And the name is Us. Us. There's a place in English that is actually a translation of Us. And you all heard, or maybe some of you heard of, what was his name? Richard Bowen? Is that the name? Wizard of Oz? So the Wizard of Oz is a series of stories, right? The Land of Oz, the Dorothy of Oz, or whatever. The Wizard of Oz is just one of them. So the Scarecrow of Oz. So when I was young, I didn't have a lot to do in the summer. So I used to read books one after the other, and whatever. So where does Oz come from? Oz is actually Us, because Oz is the land of wonders and miracles, and it's based upon this story. And Harambam says something fantastic. When you read this book, you are actually entering a wondrous space. It's a spiritual space, but it's real, right? And he says that the word us in Hebrew, us, means I want you to think carefully. There's a pasuk in Yeshaya Hanavi, Usu Isa Betufa. Usu Isa Betufa means think about this matter very carefully because it's serious stuff. Or not everything is serious. This is serious. So what we are about to enter is a very serious land which is going to hopefully inspire you all to think carefully about what we're reading. And the story takes place with an Ish, Iyov Shemo, his name was Job, V'haya ha'ishahu, and we start by describing who this individual was. Number one, Tam. Number two, Yashar, Yereh Elohim. Number three, and number four, Sar Merah. Let's take each one of these traits. What does the word Tam mean? So we have it in the Haggadah, right? Haggadah Pesach, V'schacham mahu omer, Rasha mahu omer, Tam mahu omer, right? And everybody says Tam is, kind of a person who's a little, like not really, kind of gullible, right? Tam, right? He's like, no, that's how Tam means. That is incorrect. Tam means a person of perfect ethical qualities. Yeah, you ever hear of the Stoics, right? So the Stoics, what is Stoicism? Stoicism is a person who worked on his ethical qualities as a human being. He's in control of his emotions. He's calm. He's collected. He knows how to analyze situations intelligently. Doesn't get too excited. That's what Tam means. A person who is stoic in his personality. There was another person in the Chumash who was referred to as Tam. Noach, right? Noach ish tzaddik. Tamim haya b'dorotav. So Noach was one of these people, right? Very, very calm and collected. They know how to look around and understand. They don't overreact. Oh my God. No, very, very sober and reasonable in the way they approach things, right? And that's what the Stoics were about. The Stoics were about that type of attitude, building your personality. Yashar. Yashar means a person who is straight in the way he conducts himself. Sometimes you have people who are religious, who are good ethical qualities, but in the ethics has to do with the inside, right? How you are inside mentally. Yashar is how you approach the world. Sometimes people don't approach the world in a honest, straight way. Even religious people, sometimes they play games, right? He was a straight person. What he said was what he meant, a straight shooter. Yereh Elohim. Yereh Elohim, Yereh Elohim, Yereh Elohim means a person who is... So, okay, there's a lot of people who do the mitzvah, right? We're here, we're studying Torah, we're doing a mitzvah, right? A lot of people put on tefillin in the morning. A lot of people pray in the morning or Shabbat Shabbat, eat kosher, do what they're supposed to do. There's very few people who have a consciousness of God. Consciousness of God in Hebrew is called Yirat Shamayim. It means that you are aware of the presence of your Creator. Yereh Elohim. It's a mental state, right? So many of us pray in the morning, no. And some people, they really feel the presence of God when they pray. Yereh Elohim. And finally, Sar Merah. What does Sar Merah mean? He stays away from evil. What does that mean? So, everybody, every individual, every human being, Malachim no, angels no, but human beings, every humanoid was created with the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara, evil inclination, and we all have foibles, we all have weaknesses, right? And an intelligent person, he identifies his own weaknesses. And once you identify your weakness, Sar Merah. What does Sar Merah mean? I know I have this weakness. I'm going to stay far away from it. I have a Yetzer Hara for McDonald's cheeseburgers. I know I have this Yetzer Hara. So if I see a McDonald's, what do? I don't walk by the McDonald's, because if I walk by, I know that I might end up entering. So I go to the other side of the street, I cross, and I turn my back, and I just go this way. Why? Why do I do that? Because I know my weakness. Some people have a weakness with gambling. If you're a person who is a compulsive, was a compulsive gambler, or you have that Yetzer Hara for gambling, don't go to Las Vegas. Bad place to be. Sar Merah. I was in Las Vegas once, a business trip, I had to go there for whatever. I'm not attracted to gambling. I have to tell you, it doesn't excite me. There was no problem. I can go to Las Vegas and still study Torah at night in my hotel room. No, that didn't bother me. So everybody has their weaknesses. Everybody has to identify their weaknesses and sarmera and go to the other side so that you don't even put yourself in a state of danger. This is a person who's very careful. That's who Noach is. Now that we know who Noach is, let's see how God...
Maybe Eov.
I'm sorry.
Eov.
Now we know who Eov is. Now that we know who Eov is, let's see how God treats him. God blesses him, first of all, with 7 sons and 3 daughters. You know, sometimes God has a way of letting you know it's not a coincidence. I'm taking care of you, right? So he sends us these little signs, just like, oh, it's okay. This is for me. Have no doubt about it. What you just experienced of me. So 10 in antiquity is considered a perfect number. They were into mathematics. They were into astronomy. They understood many things. The ancient Babylonians certainly did. And he gives them 10 children exactly, 7 sons and 3 daughters. And we'll see in a moment the significance of the number 7 soon. But first, Vahi Mikneu, that's the family. So he's blessed with a beautiful family. Vahi Mikneu, and he is all over the place in business. He doesn't have one business, he doesn't have 2 businesses, he has numerous businesses. Anything that generates money back in those days, he's in it. So Vahi Mikneu Shivat al Peson, to begin with, he has 7,000 sheep. Sheep were used because back then, textile, how do you produce textile? From the sheep and the goat. Goats is, what is that called? Cashmere. Sheep is wool. I think I got that right. He's into that. 3,000 camels. What is that? What are the camels? Because businessmen, today we have these containers, right? The containers, right, that they travel. We have the big supply chain crisis, and a lot of containers are stuck off the port of Los Angeles. So back then there was no containers. There was camels. That's how you took commercial goods from one city to another. He's into that. So he's shipping business. And then he has 500 pairs of oxen. What is that for? That is used for farming. So he's into agriculture. And he has 500 donkeys. That was used for personal travel. If a person needs to travel from point A to point B, they would use the atonot. And he had a tremendous household with many servants. So this is not just a person who is Eov is not just careful about his personality, but he worked hard. He built these businesses, and he was blessed by God with a beautiful family and amazing success in business. But then he had something else. In addition to the fact that he was so successful, not every successful business person is considered a great leader. He was considered the most prominent individual in that part of the world. And that time, everybody heard of Eov. Eov was an incredible personality. So they knew him. So he has respect. He has money. He has assets. He has a family. And it all makes sense. Please. Yeah, no. So it all makes sense, because on the one side you say, okay, this person is such a good person. He is so ethical. He is so stoic. He is so careful. On the other hand, God is blessing him. Beautiful. At this point in the story, I'm saying, I love this story. This is great. Nothing can go wrong. This is the way it should be. But you all know that it's not the way it is, right? Because life is so much more complex than it. So it starts like this. Well, what did we say? Where does the story take place? It takes place in the land of Oz. Us means thing. There's going to be a big conundrum taking place, and we're all going to have to face it because it depicts reality. But we're continuing with this beautiful story. And finally, a lot of people have beautiful families. A lot of people have great businesses. They're very successful. But what is the one thing a person wants to know when he gets older with the children? He wants to know that there's no fighting, that everybody's together, that there's love, that there's camaraderie. People are happy with each other. That's the dream, right? Because you can build a business and then, ban minan, chas v'shalom. We shouldn't know that. But if the children are fighting and this and that, everything can go down the drain. It's just not worth it. But in this case, there was a beautiful minhag that they had. The minhag was as follows. V'halechu banav. First of all, what does the word v'halechu mean? What does it remind you of? Halechu, halacha. They went in the path of Iyov. Meaning he was able to pass his virtues. He was able to transmit his values to the next generation. V'halechu banav. But more than that. They had a custom. There were 7 sons. Remember we said that? 7? Sunday through Shabbat. Every day, one of the sons would host a beautiful party for the family. And they would include the sisters with them. So all the siblings would be together every single day. So in addition to everything that I've described up to now, the success in business and the tremendous recognition, the name recognition of Iyov and how people respected him, he also had a loving family. They just enjoyed each other's company. And they got together every single day. So this is the Noah. I'm sorry, Iyov.
You're just testing us.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the beginning of the story. And, he was very careful. And he took an insurance policy. And I want to tell you what the insurance policy was. Read the next pasuk. Pasuk He. Vayhi ki hikifu yemei hamishter. At the end of every week, Vayishlach Iyov vayikadeshem. Iyov took his children. He didn't do it personally. He sent a shaliach, maybe some religious figure. It doesn't tell us who it was, but it wasn't him personally. Vayikadeshem. And he insisted, and they did it, that they make tevilah, that they go to the mikveh, that they make tevilah, all of them, meaning that they cleanse themselves before God. Now, that's not all he did. That's what he told them to do. But he did something that was well beyond that. And he woke up early in the morning. Iyov would bring 10 korbanot, and I'll tell you in a moment what type of korbanot Iyov brought. Ki amar Iyov, and Iyov was thinking the following: insurance policy. My life is beautiful. My children are beautiful. My businesses are great. I don't want to lose it. It's perfect, and therefore I need to be perfect, right? If I do one thing wrong, then I don't deserve this anymore. So he would bring a korban olah. He would bring 10 korbanot. Some mefarshim say it was 7 against the sons, but it says ve'e'ala olot mispar kulam. It says all of them. So I take it as 10 because he had 10 children, right? And he said perhaps the following took place. Ulai chatu banai. Maybe my children made a sin. Now, if they made a sin, they wouldn't disrespect me. So what type of sin would they do? In the mind. Maybe somebody was disrespectful to God in their minds. I want to explain to you what this korban was. In the Bet HaMikdash, this is obviously not the Bet HaMikdash, right? Because Iyov wasn't even Jewish, right? In the Bet HaMikdash, there was 4 types of korbanot. There was a korban chatat for certain types of avonot. There was a korban asham for certain types of avonot. There was a korban shelamim. Korban shelamim was if somebody just wanted to say thank you to Hashem. Thank you for the water. If somebody wanted to say thank you to Hashem.
You should move this inside. Yeah. We're about to get a little water.
Yeah.
You asked for water, Rabbi?
Maybe over there.
Asking for water. I try to be a little more circumspect in the way I ask for things next time. I'll look down rather than looking up. Okay, that's number 1. yes. But seriously, let's get back. I want to explain to you this because this thing about the korban olot is important. In the Bet HaMikdash, I told you they brought a korban chatat, korban Hashem, korban shelamim. Korban shelamim was brought by a person who wanted to say thank you to Hashem for a particular beautiful thing that happened in his life, and he would come to the Beit HaMikdash and he would bring the Korban Shalamim, and they would make a huge feast after they would bring certain parts of the animal in the Mizbeach. They would eat in Yerushalayim, and they would invite the family and the friends and Aniyim and Evyonim and Leviim and Chachamim, and it was a beautiful event, the Korban Shalamim. But then there was something more sublime, and I'm referring to the Korban Olah. The Korban Olah was a Korban that was brought by an individual, not because he wanted to say thank you for something. The Korban Olah was brought by an individual who was concerned that he may have thought some evil thoughts. Perhaps something came into his mind that was improper. Maybe he was thinking about while he was falling asleep, maybe he was thinking about how he's going to take revenge against someone, hurt someone, do something inappropriate. So the Korban Olah was completely consumed by the fire. There was nothing left. There was nothing to eat. There was nothing there. And it was brought, the Pasuk in Parashat Sav says, Zot Torat HaOlah, right? This is the rule of the Olah. And then it says, Hi HaOlah al Mokedah al-Mizbeach kol halayla ve'esh ha-Mizbeach tukad bo. It says the Olah was consumed that night, entirely. It was ephemeral. It just went up into the Shamayim. And the reason is because, first of all, it is at night, and when people, go to sleep, and sometimes they have thoughts and visions and things. So that's why it was burnt at night, and there was nothing left, because the thought is ephemeral. So when you read the Korban Olah, you're telling God, I want you to give me kapara. If I thought something that was wrong, and by thinking something that was wrong, I hurt my neshama, right? Please forgive me for that. So Eov is very intelligent. He's not bringing a Korban Chatat for an obvious sin, because his sons wouldn't disrespect him like that. He's not bringing a Korban Hashem for a different type of obvious sin. He's bringing a Korban Olah. Hashem, I know these people, we are all human beings. Please, if anybody thought something that's not right, please forgive us. That's his insurance policy. And that's what Eov does. But let's now transition to the real world. And what we're about to read now takes place on Rosh Hashanah. Eov is in this world. He's enjoying himself. Everything is great. Vahi Hayom. It is the day. And the Chachamim explained to us that this day was Rosh Hashanah. I take that seriously because of the particular events that take place. Vayavo'u Bnei ha'Elohim lehityasev al Adonai. A certain type of angels, there's different types of angels in the Shamayim, Hanafam goes through it, and the Chachamei Kabbalah go through it. One of the categories of angels is called Bnei ha'Elohim. I will explain in a moment what the job of Bnei ha'Elohim is. They come before God. It's Rosh Hashanah. They want God to give them their various assignments. So what is Bnei ha'Elohim? The word Elohim in Hebrew means Hashem. It also means the rulers, and it also means the judges. And Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. Bnei ha'Elohim are those angels that come to God and say, what are the judgments that we have to execute this coming year? Everybody gets a mission. Everybody gets a particular job, right? This person should be blessed. Go bless him. This person, on something else, right? The Bnei ha'Elohim are there to receive their marching orders from God. So they come on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is Yom Adin. That's the day where God judges us. And that's the day that Bnei ha'Elohim come before God. And entering with the Bnei ha'Elohim is the Satan. Of course, the Satan in English is translated as Satan. In Hebrew, we associate the Satan with the Yeser Hara, with the evil inclination of the individual. So what does that mean, right? So God created the world, right? And God made the world an amazing place. On the first day, He creates the light. And on the second day, He creates space. On the third day, vegetation. On the fourth day, the various celestial luminaries, right? Fifth day, the birds, the fish. Sixth day, the mammals. And the pasuk says, on the very end of creation, God looks at the creation. Now, until now, every time God looks at the creation, it says, Kitov, it's good. It's good. God was pleased with what He created. On the last day, it doesn't say Tov. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa v'hinne tov me'od. It was great. And the Chachamim said, what was great? What was it? And they say, Ze Yetzer Hara. God created on that day, he created the Yetzer Hara. He created, there's certain spirit of intelligence. So sometimes we have access to the spirit of intelligence. There's a book in the Bible, it's called Daniel. He discusses how this spirit of intelligence comes to man. It says, Yahib Hakimah Hakimin, subject for a different story, but that's not the subject of this story. There's a certain spirit of insanity, right? And that spirit of insanity is referred to as Tov Me'od. This is great. Well, what's great about the spirit of insanity? Just put that on the side, because there's so much to talk about in this book. We're not going to get there, but I'm letting you know. That's what the Chachamim is saying. That's the subject of this verse. The Satan comes, right? And he's before God, and God speaks to him. Vayomer Adonai LaSatan, Me'ayin tavo. We say in the night of Pesach, we say Me'wen Jaya, right? We say that also. Me'wen Jaya, Me'ayin tavo. Where are you coming from? Now, where are you coming from? It refers to a specific spot, right? What's the answer to Me'wen Jaya? We're coming from Mitzrayim. In Mitzrayim, it's a very specific spot. Okay. The Satan doesn't say that. Vayan hasatan et Adonai vayomar mishut ba'aris umehitalech ba. I'm all over the place. I'm all over. You can't pin me down to a single location. Mishut ba'aris. I've been traveling all over. Umehitalech ba, and I'm going to different places. Okay, we'll explain that in a moment. Vayomer Adonai LaSatan. Hashem says, well, if you've been traveling all over, Hasamta libecha ala Yov. You know there's a person called Yov? I'd like you to take a look at him. There's nobody like him in the whole world. Ishtam, the man is stoic. Yashar, he's straight as an arrow. Yereh Elohim, he has consciousness of my presence. Besar Meran, he runs away from anything that could potentially hurt him. He doesn't want to do any sins. He does his best to stay away from evil. That's the dialogue that Hashem and the Satan are having. I'm going to explain this in a moment. Give me a moment, but I just want to go to the next pasuk, and then we're going to go backwards and read it again. Vayan Satan et Adonai vayomar, and the Satan cynically speaks to God, and he says, Hachinam yareh Iyov Elohim. Really? Job has spare of you? You said that? You said Job is aware of your consciousness? You think it's for free? You think he does it just like that? Because he loves you? You took care of him. You take care of his children. You take care of his family. You take care of his businesses. Anybody who just touches Iyov gets blessed. Whatever he does, nobody has the blessing that Iyov has. Whatever flock he has, incredible prosperity. Whatever he does, incredible success. Says the Satan to God, I have news for you. You begin to hurt Iyov, you cause him pain. He's going to be the first one to curse you to your face. That's what the Satan tells God. Okay.
So they put him to the test.
Put him to the test. Put him to the test. Give him some pain. Let's see how much he continues to praise you and to thank you and to be religious and all that. I want to tell you what's going on here. You know, I used to read the story with my father. Boy, did we have a lot of discussions about this. And I really thought about this carefully. And for many years, and I would say even many decades. And I think I know what it's talking about. I think I know what this dialogue is about. And I want to share that with you. You know, there was a historian, a German historian for the end of 1700s, beginning of 1800s, mid-1800s. His name was Hegel. He wrote a book called The Phenomenology of Spirit. It's one of the most difficult books ever written in any language. I mean, seriously, like, it's just, don't even, I'm not, I didn't read the book. I read about the book. I read translations of the book. I read commentaries on the book. It's just infamously difficult to understand the book. But he has some points here that are really incredible. And he uses a German word. I'm probably mispronouncing it, so if you have like a meeting with a German business partner, don't try to impress him by repeating the word as I repeat it, because like I said, it's probably mispronounced. But spirit in German is Geist, maybe Geist. And Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist means, oh, you heard that word?
Sure.
Zeitgeist means the spirit of the age. And he goes through history and he shows that there's different types of, he uses the word spirit. I would use perhaps the word cultural trends, maybe. That's a better word, but it's not as powerful as spirit. I like the word spirit. But there's certain types of trends that take over human consciousness. Now, you know there's a Yetzer Hara, so we all have a Yetzer Hara, and we think of it as an individual thing. And the point of the phenomenology of spirit, and the Chachamim would agree with this, is sometimes there's a mass Yetzer Hara that just takes over humanity, right? That's the Zeitgeist. Let me give you an example of that. You look at the history of World War I, World War II, and there really was a certain madness that took over humanity. I mean, they were crazy. Fascism under Benito Mussolini in Italy. This idea that the state has the right to impose its authority through brute military force. Why would people support that? I mean, are you crazy? Right? And the army can come in and take away your rights and treat you like vassals, but they loved it. They loved it. Fascism was a great thing. Also in Togo's Japan. Japan also, they had this crazy ruler called Togo. And they had that in, of course, well, I mean, the Germans took it to an extent that was simply mind-boggling. I mean, anybody who just reads anything about what the Nazis did, it's just, it's shocking even to modern-day Germans. I mean, when modern-day Germans find out what their grandparents did, it's just unfathomable. You can't understand it. So people were taken over by this madness. And you're saying, well, that's in Hegel's phenomenology of spirit. Do the Chachamim agree with that? Yes. Explicitly so. And I'll show you why in a moment. There's a Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin. And the Gemara discusses the following. There's a Mishnah in Masechet Sanhedrin, and it says that there's 3 kings among the Jewish people that do not have Chelek Le'olam Haba. Every king among the Jewish people has Chelek Le'olam Haba. 3 kings don't have Chelek Le'olam Haba because they were so wicked and so evil. It's just like unexcusable what they did. It was just crazy. But we had a lot of crazy kings. So these kings were really bad. I mean, they were terrible. And then there was one king called Menashe ben Chizkiah, and the Gemara says, well, you know, some people say he does have Chelek Le'olam Haba. He was a terrible king. He did terrible things. I'll tell you in a moment what he did. And it's kind of like, you know, back and forth on this. So there's a Hakam called Rav Asher. Rav Asher was the Rosh Yeshiva Surah, and he was one of the editors of the Gemara, actually. And they're studying the Mishnah, and they get up to that point of the 3 kings that don't have Chelek Le'olam Haba. And he made a kind of a cynical comment. He said tomorrow, but they were studying the Mishnah. He says tomorrow we're going to return to Eretz. We're going to study about our friends, our colleagues, these 3 kings. He was saying it cynically and jokingly because these are terrible people, right? So he calls them our friends, our colleagues, not in a joking way, right? So anyway, he goes to sleep at night. Rav Asher. Rav Asher was one of the greatest Chachamim in the Gemara, just so you know, okay? He goes to sleep at night, and one of these 3 kings, Menashe, comes to him in a dream. Now, let me just tell you a little about Menashe. Menashe was the son of a king called Chizkiah. This is in the days of the first Beth HaMikdash. Chizkiah, the father, was a tzaddik, an incredible tzaddik. He had the entire Jewish nation return to God. He had the most incredible miracles happen in his days when the Assyrians wanted to destroy Jerusalem. And he was good friends with Yeshaya Hanavi, Isaiah, and Chizkiah. They were very, very close with each other. So it was a beautiful time to be alive for the Jewish people. So this man has a son. He has a few sons. One of the sons is Chizkiah. The other one was Rav Shakeh. Chizkiah's son, Menashe, becomes the king after his father. Now, there was a Zeitgeist in this age. You know what the Zeitgeist was? It wasn't just to do idolatry. Idolatry, it was hedonism, but it wasn't just to do hedonism. they used to do avodat molech. Molech was a particular type of god, and it's terrible to talk about this, but they used to burn their children to the idols. It's just like, and now this guy Menashe was so into avodat molech, he burnt his own child for the idol. It's just complete madness. Again, Zeitgeist. I can't think about it. The phenomenology of spirit. There's a certain spirit of madness. All the goyim were doing it, obviously. He didn't invent it, right? But he was so involved in it. Now, if anybody didn't want to do avodat molech, he would kill them. Meaning, it's not like you can say, well, I don't really believe in it. Is it okay if I don't practice this religion? No. There is no freedom to be irreligious. You must do the molech, right? And many, many people were murdered by him. He did horrible, horrible sins. Simply, okay, you got it right. Okay. So this guy Menashe is one of those three kings, and as I said, there's a machloket with respect to Menashe. Some people said he actually has Tariq L'Olam Haba. For whatever reason, a different story. Back to Rav Asher. Rav Asher is that rabbi who was giving the class. He said, tomorrow we're going to talk about our three friends, right? Cynically, comically, he goes to sleep at night. One of the three friends, namely Menashe, comes to him in the dream. And he says, I get it. Like you're cynically referring to me as one of your friends. Like you can just mock me. This is what Menashe is telling Rav Asher in his dream. I want to tell you something. You think you're a know-it-all, you're the Rosh Yeshiva of Surah? Let me ask you a question in halakha. He asked me the question. He says, when you cut the bread Friday night with the knife, right? You cut the bread, you do besi'ah, amosilach min ha'aretz, you cut the bread. Where are you supposed to cut the bread from? What part of the bread? And the guy's like, I don't know. I didn't know there was even a law like that. I thought you just cut it, give it out, and that's it. He says, well, no, there actually is a law. How brings it? So you should cut it from the part that gets crusty first, right? The best part of the crust, that's where you cut it from. And then you start giving out from over there. So Rav Asher says, wow, like you really knew a lot of Torah. He says, yeah, I do know a lot of Torah. So can I ask you a question? Says Rav Asher to Menashe. I know the stories about you. You did horrible sins, but you knew a lot of Torah. Can you please tell me how the heck you got involved in this horrible avodah zarah? And he says, I have news for you. This is Menashe's answer, and listen to it carefully. Rav Asher was the Rosh Yeshiva of Surah. He was one of the greatest Emoraim. By the way, you know how old he was when he became the Rosh Yeshiva of Surah? Surah was the greatest yeshiva in human history, where the Gemara was written. Okay, so it's pretty good, right? It's good stuff. You know how old he was when he was appointed the Rosh Yeshiva of Surah? 14 years old. 14. So you got it. He's like a really smart guy. Menashe tells Rav Asher, if you lived in that generation, you would be picking up your jalabiyah to run to the avodah zarah so that you could pray to avodah zarah. I lived in a generation where everybody believed in it. So don't you dare disrespect me. And then Rav Asher wakes up in the morning and he studies the incident of Menashe, and he says, there's a machloket. Not everybody says he has no Tariq L'Olam Haba, and that's the story. Zeitgeist, right there. Phenomenology of spirit. There is a spirit of madness that takes over people's minds. And when that spirit takes over, there's no logical discussion that you can have with fascists and say, nationalism is a little brutal. What did you just say? You can't speak to people. Logic doesn't matter. When a person is overcome with madness, he's overcome with madness. It's just the way it is. My father once said comically that if logic was a cure for madness, they would not have doctors in psychiatric wards. They would have philosophers and logicians. Right? But they don't. You need doctors. You need doctors. Because logic is useless. I think that's what's happening here. God tells the Satan, where are you coming from? The Satan says, Zeitgeist. I'm all over. Mishut ba'aret. I'm having a great time. The spirit of evil is taking over mankind, and I'm enjoying it. And you know what God tells the Satan? He says, you think you control everything. But it's just not true. Because even in a society where there is madness, there is always choice. Man can always choose. Right? What is the meaning of that choice? He says there's a person called Eov, and he, even though everybody around him is corrupt and so on, He's actually protecting himself from the madness. He doesn't buy into it. You remember the story of Nazi Germany? And you remember the story of Schindler's List? What does that story tell us? It tells us exactly what the story of Job is telling us. God is telling the Satan, there's always a choice. You, as a human being, as an individual in a society which is infected with madness, can always choose to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to accept that. This is not what I want to be. This is not who I want to be. This is not the values that I believe in. I reject it. It takes courage, by the way. Very few people have the courage because most people are afraid to be alone. So they're not gonna go through what I just said. They're not going to reject it, because to reject it means you have to reject the celebrities on TV, and you have to reject Domino's Pizza, and you have to reject Netflix. And if you don't have Domino's Pizza and Netflix delivered to your house, what do you have? But you have a celebrity getting on TV, and like they make you feel all good, like, wow, this is like really good. Like, I like this celebrity. There was what was his role again? Yeah, he was a superhero, right? So we don't want to cut ourselves off from these beautiful things around us, right? Domino's, Netflix, and celebrities. So we're not going to do it, but we can. We can choose to do it. Job chooses to do it, and God tells the Satan, you are wrong. You don't control people. People make a choice. So that's the story. That's the dialogue. What time is it, by the way? 9:30. Let me just tell you what happens, because obviously we're not going to finish the whole chapter. There's back and forth. Job is afflicted with the worst type of suffering. I mean, everything is destroyed. His business is gone. I mean, everything, just literally gone. His children wiped out. Wiped out. And finally, he himself is afflicted with the worst type of disease, and he's in horrible pain. And oh my gosh, it's a story. He never curses God. He doesn't. You know that this chapter ends. I mean, or the next chapter where this particular story ends. It ends with Al Harechem Patach Yov et Piu v'Kalel et Yomo. Yov curses the day he was born. He curses his life because he's suffering so much. He's in such terrible pain. He curses his life. He curses the day he was born. He never speaks against God. The only thing he tells to God is as follows: Arom yasati mi beten imi ve'arom ashuv shama Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach lehi shem Adonai mevorach. He says, when I left my mom's womb, I was naked. I will return to the Mother Earth, to the womb of the earth. I will be naked. God gave me. God took away from me. May God's name be blessed eternally. That's Job. So Job, with all the different questions, I know everybody asks, why does Job suffer? Why is there pious that suffer so much? Why are there wicked people who prosper? Okay, those are all great questions. I'm not against those questions. But I really wanted to give you a lesson in Job that nobody talks about. And that lesson is the idea that, Job said no to the crazy values around him. And even at the last moment, he believed in God, he respected God, he was suffering, and he said, God, take my life away. I don't know what you did to me. He had questions against God, but he wasn't disrespectful. He didn't curse, Barminan. So the Satan doesn't control anyone here. We control ourselves. We choose. We choose. And we can all choose to do what Job did. Meaning, if society ever degenerates into madness, we don't have to.
I'm sorry, did you say if?
I'm trying to be politically correct to a certain extent, right? But as things degenerate around us, values, norms, we have a mind. And just because a particular celebrity gets on TV and, smile and whatever, and okay, I mean, that's their opinion, but we have a mind, we have consciousness, we're aware of God, and we use our consciousness and awareness of God to say no to madness. That's one of the great lessons of tonight's
Did things turn around for Job?
Yes, at the very end things turn around, and the story ends actually quite beautifully and poetically, but there's this back and forth and one of those incredible dialogues. Honestly, you can read this till late at night and just stay up all night studying these chapters, because they're crazy, just, crazy journeys through different ideas, and it's one of my favorite books. So, if there's any questions or...
There's tons of questions. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Good. Well, it was very nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.